welcome back to another episode of Scott's Quick Cash Class. Today we have a special guest. It's my wife, Sally. Say hello, Sally.
Hi,
And how
Sally.
to hopefully not destroy your marriage or maybe be frustrated. It's about, creating better habits and stuff. So we're going to go over a few things, some things that we did to help with that. So I'm going to start you off. And still. So we're going to start you off with a statistic that I find very interesting. 1 out of 3 couples discover major debt only after getting married, right? So let's talk a little bit about us. So when we kind of knew each other for a while. We've been married 13 years this year?
Yeah.
Yes, 13 wonderful years this
Yeah.
year. So what kind of finance conversations did we have going way back, even when we started dating at 18?
I know we definitely had a conversation about what debt each one of us had because at that time it was like schooling, car,
Motorcycle. I did have a motorcycle too. So we did talk. We were just
credit
dating at the
cards
time.
even. Yeah.
Yep. So what did we do when we first got married? What was one of the things that we did to kind of help alleviate maybe some of those arguments that newlyweds might have? Didn't we talk about, or didn't we read that book, like New Couples, about finance? And then we did a $50 rule. So basically, anytime we were going to spend more than $50, we had a conversation with the other person, right?
Yeah, and then we even started the envelope. We figured out where the priorities were and put a certain amount in each envelope. And if the money was in there to like go out to eat envelope, if the money was in there, we could go out to eat. If not,
So that is true. We did come up with an envelope system, and I've talked about in saving and budgeting the envelope system. But essentially, when you get paid, you have your fund money, you have your money for gas, your money for let's say cigarettes, or your money for going out. And when that's gone, it's gone. Now, if you have extra, what do you do with the extra?
put it in whatever envelopes that you want to go have fun with.
Gotcha. Okay. So,
Or just have a conversation about, hey, I was looking to, I've been looking at this app that I want to get every month or whatever it is, and have a conversation about it. If it doesn't fit both of you, your goals, I mean, you're only going to not be working against each other if you don't communicate.
that is true. So tell me, how did you feel when we started doing that $50 rule? Did it feel like you were restricted? Did you feel anxious? Did you feel nervous? Did it feel like you had to ask permission? How did that feel to you?
No, I think it just felt more like, so we were on the same page with it, and it didn't feel like you were trying to control or trying to tell me how to spend money. $50 at that time was a decent amount at that time that we needed to have a conversation about, because
There wasn't extra 50s.
there wasn't extra 50s. And so, I mean, I didn't feel defensive or anything about it. We were pretty much on the same page. I think because we had the previous conversations before we got married about our goals as far as money and all of that. If you're not on the same page when you first get married, you got to switch it around.
You do have to clear that up. So here's another interesting statistic. So 73% of couples with shared budgets report fewer arguments, right? Because if you're on the same page about money, it definitely clears up the air for other things. Just take a minute and think to yourself, how many times have I had an argument with my significant other, or even a relative, about money, that if there would have been a conversation or communication up front, that maybe could possibly avoided that. So that's one thing that I think has been pretty big in our marriage and our relationship with finances. I mean, we've obviously had plenty of arguments in 13 years, but I do feel like the financial arguments are much less. And we probably should have prefaced this with, we don't have any separate accounts. All of our accounts are joint accounts. All the credit cards we have, any properties we have, all of that is in both of our names. We don't have any individual accounts. So
And besides invest.
well, yes, I do have for work. I do have some 401ks that my name is on, but she's obviously listed as the beneficiary. So from a financial aspect, all of our finances are and all of our accounts are on the same, and that just creates transparency. One of the other statistics I saw is 4 out of 10 Gen Z couples, one of the partners is worried about the other partner spending. So almost half of you guys are out there worried, is my partner spending something they shouldn't have? Are we gonna have enough money to pay rent, car payment? You know, those are all very frustrating things, and we haven't been in that situation, so it's difficult for me to put myself in those shoes. Maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit, how you would feel if we didn't have conversations about budget.
Well, I just think that, I mean, who goes into a marriage and goes, oh, I just want to like spend all the money that we have and just burn this thing into the ground. Like, nobody goes into a marriage wanting to make it fail. So I feel like if you just have an open conversation about finances, maybe the person doesn't know. Maybe the person's like, oh, so like house is getting paid, car's getting paid, you know, we still have food on the table. Maybe they don't even know. I think it's just an honest conversation, because nobody has a goal of completely destroying, not having money. If I keep spending money, I know we're eventually not going to have it. That's not my goal. And I don't think that's anybody's goal. So just being transparent is huge.
But I think a lot of couples, and that's huge. I think a lot of couples don't have a conversation until it's too late, right? Until something, hey, I'm behind on my credit card payment, my car's getting repossessed, or hey, rent's gonna be late, you know, it's the 29th and you're like, hey, I don't have money, rent's not gonna be able to get paid till the 5th, 8th. You know, we have those conversations when it's too late, instead of having those tough conversations before and finding out where actually each of us stand. So here's a couple actionable items for you, 3 as a matter of fact. Have a financial check-in day. And that can be any day of the week. You know, it can be Mondays to start the week off right. It could be Sundays when the week, you know, is done. But here's my suggestion to you, and this has worked well for me and Sally, is set some time aside every week. And I wish we were perfect and did it every week. We don't, but we do make it a priority to have financial conversations with each other so there isn't any surprises. And one other piece of advice, when you set up these financial, or anytime you're going to have this conversation, you guys both need to be well fed, not tired, not angry, because if you go into the conversation and you're thinking emotionally, or you have many other distractions, things like that, you're not going to be as productive as you can, right? And these don't have to be long conversations, like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, to kind of figure out where you're at. But you want to make sure it's in a quiet place, that you're not going to be distracted. And then that's just alone time for you two to get on the same page, because couples that talk about finances and share goals are way more likely to be successful, right? If you're going at it alone, you're not going to be successful. When you're in a team, you're much more likely to be successful, and that goes with anything in life. So that's one thing. The other thing is maybe have non-micro spending days, right? So maybe we take Saturday off and we don't spend any money on Saturday, and it's kind of like a competition. So you can go the longest on a Saturday without spending any money. And now I'm not talking about like regular bills and stuff. We obviously have to pay those, but those extracurricular things that we've talked about. And then lastly, is just start a shared goal together that you guys are both putting money into. Whether that's a down payment for a car, a house, maybe your next vacation, maybe it's a flat screen TV, whatever that might be, is start a goal together, put a date on it, put specific times in there that you're going to put money in, like every Friday we're each putting $10 in, and then stick to it. And then go out there and enjoy that purchase together, and see how that team building exercise and that task together creates more of a connection and more of a bond. Because I know that certainly has happened when we have been, you know, whether it was saving to buy for a rental or saving to buy for a car, those things have really grown us together to help get that goal. And when you accomplish that task together, especially financially,
It's way more rewarding.
it definitely is. When you can share that with somebody else, and you know, not just the pain of when you fail, but when you succeed, it's always better having somebody there with you. So, anything else to add, Mrs. Divert, before we get to the question of the day and tip of the day?
I just can't emphasize how important communication and transparency is with finances.
All right.
That's about it.
I definitely agree. So we're going to leave you with question of the day. So how often do you and your partner talk about finances, and do you know each other's credit scores? So I'll leave you with that. Okay, not that credit score is the end all be all, but it's just about knowing maybe you know their favorite color, but do you know their credit score, right? And if they don't want to tell you your credit score, there's obviously a reason for that.
That was another thing we knew before we got married.
We did.
We talked about
We did.
that.
We did. And then tip of the day. Money doesn't ruin marriages, silence does. Have a conversation today. So if you don't have a conversation about finances, eventually you're going to have to, because there's a problem. It's much better to get out ahead of it and deal with that conversation and maybe some of those tough sticking points before there's actually a problem.
Can I add something to that?
Absolutely.
Just to piggyback on what Scott was saying earlier about if you're tired, all of that, just check in with the person, say, hey, I really want to have a financial conversation this week. What time is going to work best for you? And it also gives the other person, instead of coming in on the defense, it gives them time to prepare for just being open and ready to receive information that's coming their way. And you're giving the person a little bit of control to dictate, and who doesn't like that? So
They like a little bit, and that gives them a little time to prepare for the conversation, so that it can be a more productive conversation. Very good point. Very good point. So I know this went a little bit longer than 5 minutes. We had a special guest. Obviously, we're going to let her talk as much as she wants to talk. So if you like what you heard, click the subscribe button, give us a like. We're always looking for questions of the day and more topics to talk about. If you liked having Sally on, let me know in the comments. Until next time.